Yesterday I told you there were 4 angles to this rotation, 2 good and then 1 bad and ugly. Today we saw more of the bad and the ugly side, of course, as we had a big sell-off in tech, and that's why I've had the yellow on my stocks for the risk radar, because there still are some unanswered issues in here. Today we got a little bit of resolution, but unfortunately it's not the kind that you want, because the ugly and the bad explanations are for rotation center around the idea of tech running out of steam or people just taking a speculative gamble on low quality stuff. Now today, we actually saw some of what had been the underperformers of the market do pretty well. Arguably some of the lower quality stuff actually hung in there. Today was more about the tech side, and possibly that came from the headlines around Trump, about Taiwan. Maybe there was something else mixed in there, but I wouldn't get too hung up on that. I think that we've seen enough weakness in the semiconductor category now for more than a week to suggest this is kind of about a momentum unwind, and maybe this just was the straw to kind of break the camel's back here. Looking at the NVIDIA chart, we gotta try and hang around this 119, 120. I can't emphasize that enough. This is still just the Occam's razor of market analysis. It's also why I've continued to say the macro takes back seat. Even though the rotation has been powerful and macro driven, the math still is so much more important in tech because of the market cap skew and concentration that hasn't gone away from a couple days. No way. If you look at NVIDIA, you're going to figure out the general direction of the overall index. And so if it breaks through 120, I mean, where's the support on the way up here? Arguably, you kind of get another section here at like 110-ish, but then there's so much gappiness on the chart going all the way back here to where we were in the late spring. That's like 90 bucks, okay? So you really just don't want NVIDIA to break down on what has been some pretty well-established support, and today we basically spent the whole day fighting for that, so I do think that's the level. Taiwan Semi is what you want to watch tomorrow. You would think that with the sell-off coming into numbers that we know are going to show a bunch of big growth for Taiwan Semi, we should get a bid tomorrow, at least initially, unless those numbers just super disappoint on the outlook. But it seems like now with the sell-off, the odds would be in favor for a little attempted dip buying action in Taiwan Semi tomorrow. Now, for bonds, going through the risk radar here, the reason why I'm still thinking about the green light on bonds is because we did get this steepener, but the steepener was the bear steepener, the bull steepener, and generally we're at the high end of the range now for the yield curve, so I just kind of think you're more likely to see yields heavier than all of a sudden yields start ripping, bonds selling off. I mean, you're going to get a bid into bonds if the NASDAQ's doing this, and you're going to get a bid into bonds based on what we saw from the rotation element, so I just don't really see a lot of big bear cases for bonds right now. The dollar also, today, this starts to get more interesting. I might have to revisit my view on the dollar actually, because if it breaks down further through this kind of big volume node we've had here, then it could get really dicey for the dollar, especially because of our conversation with Jeff Kleintop today. We continue to see that the other countries are kind of weighing a little bit here on the dollar when you've got the pound strength and the inflation sticky there, as well as the overall trajectory for rates that may not just be straight down. So the dollar really kind of at the low end of the range. If the dollar breaks down further, then might just have to put the red light on the greenback. The calculus has changed a little bit. If we're locking in September basically as our cut with a great degree of certainty, but now the cut expectations for Europe are kind of starting to backtrack, that could weigh on the dollar here. But generally, this was ugly, if not a bad day. You really need to get a bid on Taiwan Semi tomorrow.